Welcome to Clear Answers About Clear Vision, the exclusive podcast series by Vance Thompson Vision. Our goal is to empower you with the knowledge and insights to make informed decisions about your eye care. Whether you're exploring options for vision correction, cataract surgery, myopia control, or oculoplastics, we're here to guide you. This podcast is dedicated to helping you achieve clear vision, one episode at a time.
Well, hello, I'm Dr. Vance Thompson, and what a pleasure it is to be here with my comrades. Um, we span 8 centers across the upper Midwest, and today I have with me Dr. Russell Swan, who is in our Bozeman and Billings Vance Thompson Vision offices, and Lawrence Wen, who is in our Omaha office, and then Matt Walker, who's in our Alexandria office. And we just have a wonderful group today to talk about something that we've just seen grow so quickly over the years in our practice, and that's refractive lens exchange. And at the end of this podcast, I think you'll have a good understanding of that. But I think a good place to start would be just talking about refractive error. And Dr. Wen, do you mind giving us a review of refractive error?
Yeah, I think a big thing is when we first get introduced to eye care, we're going in to see if we need glasses or contact lenses. And so a lot of people hear the terminology thrown around nearsightedness, farsightedness, and then the big scary word is stigmatism. But what it means is, when someone's nearsighted, typically they're able to see up close, but because their eyeball is either too steep or too long, they don't have the ability to see as well out in the distance. When someone is farsighted, their eyeball is too short or it's too flat. And so with regards to that corrective error, oftentimes people will need glasses to be able to see well just up close. A lot of folks don't realize this, but with farsighted folks, they usually will actually over accommodate or overstrain their eyes. And so a lot of people, when we talk about refractive lens exchange, will typically be farsighted and want to be away from glasses. And then as they encroach 40s, 50s, that's when they're going to start seeing the eye doctor, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a little bit. And then when it comes to astigmatism, usually that means that there's just this asymmetry in the curvature of the eye that's causing light to just focus at two different points versus one point. And so a lot of times you'll hear the eyes shaped like a football, for example, versus a basketball. But in general, what's nice is when you go see the eye doctor, you're able to get glasses, contact lenses to be able to correct for either of those three refractive errors. And then, of course, we have laser vision correction like LASIK or PRK for a lot of folks as well. And then as we get older, though, one of the things to realize is with this refractive error, it's only going to help you out in the distance. As we get older, there's a lot of lens dysfunctional changes that occur that cause us to not be able to see as well up close. And so that's where we kind of segue or introduce the topic of refractive lens exchange and presbyopia.
Wow, what a great review. And what amazes me is, how some people think if they have astigmatism, that can't be corrected, but, it's the most common thing we correct. And technically, everybody has a little bit of it because a perfectly round eye you just don't find in nature. So don't worry if you have astigmatism. It blurs distance, computer, and cell phone. And one of the neat things about clearing it up with a surgical correction, or optical correction is that it helps all three distances. Well, Matt, I'm going to ask you to spend a little bit of time talking more about what Lawrence introduced, and that is the aging of our lens. I kind of think of it as 3 stages. Could you go over that some for us?
Yeah, happy to. So everyone has a natural lens in their eye about the size of an M&M. It is situated right behind the iris, and it's the second most powerful focusing element to the eye besides the cornea. And that natural lens does a couple things. It helps to focus light onto the retina. but then it also can change shape to change our focus from distance to near, almost like adjusting a telescope for different distances. And just amazing what we have in our eye, and that we just, maybe even take for granted that we can see distance and near, and we just see. But there's a few things that happens with that lens with birthday candles. I remember a long time ago, my old surgeon said, don't say age, but call it birthday candles. And I usually get a chuckle out of that. But the first thing that happens is that natural lens will start to stiffen over time. And the natural lens is made of protein. As it stiffens, it can't change and flex as much as it used to, where some folks can still have very nice clear distance vision, but they start to, it gets harder and harder to be able to see things up close. They have to strain harder, or their arms become too short where they struggle to be able to see up close. And that stiffening of that lens is called presbyopia, when folks need cheaters or bifocals or monovision in order to see well. But they can still see well for distance because the natural lens is clear. So if we could break it into 3 stages, the first stage is a clear lens that flexes. That's our healthy lens that everybody loves. The second stage is when that flexibility starts to go. That's presbyopia, where you start to lose your near vision. And then stage 3 is when that natural lens starts to become cloudy, hazy, or the optical quality of that lens starts to deteriorate. That's a cataract. So those are the 3 stages of that natural lens.
Well, thank you, Dr. Walker. What a great review of this lens behind our pupil that has this magical zoom and just ages over the years. But I think, Dr. Swan, you do a lot of, laser and implant surgery, and, kind of address all 3 stages of that journey, whether it's, refractive error, or whether we're getting into, refractive error with presbyopia, or getting in even to the cataract years. Do you mind reviewing when, all of us, being big fans of glasses and contacts, see patients who are ready to look into their surgical options, and how you address all 3 stages of that lens aging journey and corrections?
Yeah, so thanks, Vance. I think this is where having sort of a comprehensive refractive mindset is super, super valuable and important, and also having experience and expertise across the board. And so, as you said, a lot of patients are happy with glasses and contacts, but there's a large patient population who desires visual freedom, for going skiing or going hunting or just waking up and being able to see their kids. And, early on in that sort of what I'll call clear and flexible lens stage, a lot of times we're looking at laser vision correction, LASIK or PRK or SMILE, where we're trying to correct someone's nearsightedness, farsightedness, or astigmatism by reshaping the cornea with a very precise laser. And that's a beautiful procedure, has really wonderful outcomes. And we've been involved in a lot of the FDA trials throughout the years to kind of help bring that to market. I think along that journey and within that kind of same space, occasionally we run into someone who's, maybe been told, well, you're not a LASIK candidate, and enjoy your glasses or contacts, even though they might be contact lens intolerant or really struggling. And some of those patients, often really, really nearsighted patients who maybe have too large of a prescription, maybe benefit from an implantable contact lens or ICL or implantable Collamer lens. You'll hear different names for it, but basically in essence, an implantable lens that can go in front of the flexible lens that they still have, but behind the colored part of the iris, and correct that large degree of nearsightedness while maintaining the flexibility of that natural lens. And then, as you mentioned, as you transition into that now kind of unflexible lens, that stiff lens that's clear, then that's when we talk about refractive lens exchange, or some people call it clear lens exchange, but removing that stiff lens, correcting someone's nearsightedness, farsightedness, astigmatism with an implantable lens, but also giving them some of that range of vision back, which is the benefit of some of our new lens technology. And then obviously if someone gets to the point where the lens is not only stiff and cloudy, then we have those same lens options when it comes to cataract surgery. So again, kind of across the spectrum from laser to implantable Collamer lens to refractive lens exchange, a really nice kind of swath of surgical options for patients.
Thank you, Dr. Swan. And I think that one of the beautiful things about setting up a refractive surgery consultation is there you get to kind of figure out what of those categories you're in and what are your options, what's your occupations, hopes, dreams, and desires. And I find that the consult is so wonderful because we get to know you, you get to know us. And then when you go home and daydream about this stuff, it's done with a lot more accuracy. Dr. Nguyen, I would like to spend a little more time on the refractive lens exchange side of things now. And, I just find we've learned so much from, bringing our cataract surgery patients both, clarity and then also the reading range of someone in their 30s that they get to enjoy for the rest of their life. Can you talk a little bit about what happens in a consultation to see if someone's a good candidate for refractive lens exchange and how you talk through that and educate?
Yeah, I mean, usually it's about an hour and a half to 2 hour kind of ordeal. So essentially, when you first come in, you're going to go through a different testing. And so we have a lot of different instruments to be able to measure the shape of the eye, the length of the eye, the curvature of it, and also going through vision testing to just see what your best potential is going to be. And so then we kind of categorize you in kind of those buckets like we talked about, where, if you're within your 20s and 30s, maybe a good option because you still have a natural flexing lens is going to be laser vision correction. Now, if you are in your 40s, 50s, and in that second stage, and you're still looking to be independent of glasses, maybe the best option for you is going to be talking about a clear or refractive lens exchange instead. And so we do talk a lot about just your hobbies, occupation, and just what you're looking through, because we kind of talk about this surgery like cataract surgery. And so there's a lot of different technologies that overlap that will help provide those that wide range of vision for folks. And so usually when I take a look at their eyes, as long as, their eyes are healthy and they know what to anticipate, I'll walk them through the surgery itself. And what's nice is the surgery is very similar to cataract surgery without the medical necessity of taking that lens out. And so typically what I say the difference is it's going to be both eyes done on the same day versus back-to-back days or a day apart. Surgery is about 8 to 10 minutes for each eye, and each eye is taken as a separate surgical case. But basically you get IV sedation or you get sublingual sedation depending on where you're at. But basically it's just going to be twilight sedation that relaxes you. For the actual surgery itself, it's a minimally invasive incision that's made. Goal is to break apart that lens, take it out through that small incision, and then we're going to be replacing that natural clear lens with the artificial implant. And so once you undergo that surgery, you don't have to replace the lens again, and that artificial implant is going to last you the rest of your life. And so I think the biggest portion of the journey in that conversation is just what technology is going to match depending on your occupation, hobbies, and what you're expecting after surgery.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. I think that a couple things that you said that I find that patients really love is, one, once you've replaced the lens, it's a permanent correction. And two, they love this idea of being able to go for 20/20 distance in each eye, 20/20 computer in each eye, and 20/20 cell phone in each eye for the rest of their life. And so, Dr. Walker, what I would love is for you to spend just a little bit of time contrasting that with monovision. A lot of people who get into those reading glasses years have heard of monovision, and we know it can work quite well, but for some patients it doesn't. But if you could talk a little bit about monovision and contrast that to refractive lens exchange and its benefits, that'd be great.
Yeah, happy to do it. So monovision is where we aim your dominant eye for distance, where the brain typically prefers to use that like shooting a gun or looking through an old camera, where we want that dominant eye to be nice and crystal clear. But when that dominant eye is clear, we have some wiggle room where we can adjust it for near and overcorrect it. So then you can see technically both ranges of vision, distance and near to an extent, by aiming one eye distance and one eye near. And we can do that through contact lenses. We can do that with LASIK, and to a point, we can even do it with cataract surgery. But what happens is, and I would say in our practice, about 80% of patients eventually can adapt to it, but your brain has to learn how to almost shut off the near eye, called suppression, when you're seeing for distance, and then flip-flop when it's for near, has to turn off the distance eye. So there's a lot of neuroadaptation that can take place, where some patients right away might struggle with it, but over time it gets better and better and better. Or some we have to start out with a small correction, and then we can kind of increase it to the amount where they can have both distance and near independence. The drawbacks of it is, again, not everybody can neuroadapt. Number two is depth perception, stereo vision can be a concern, right? Because you need both eyes to see well for distance and both eyes for near, and some patients lose that. Again, it's amazing what our brain can overcome to try to adjust to that. And I would say it's successful for a lot of patients, but if they were given a choice at 42 years old of doing something to give them distance and near without having to compromise that, monovision certainly has its limitations. And then I remember when I first joined VTV back about 6 years ago, you had mentioned, and I educate patients on this all the time, that when we do monovision in contacts and LASIK with your natural lens in your eye, it tends to work better because the natural lens gives you an extended depth of focus where we aim that near eye at a certain point, but you get all this, and that's why, again, it can be successful for patients. But we also find when we do it either in a refractive lens exchange or standard cataract surgery, we're taking out that thick lens, replacing it with an implant, and that extended depth of focus can be gone. And depending on expectations, sometimes patients might not get as much near as they're looking for. So we really spend time on learning about what their goal is, if they want to match what they had with monovision previously, or are they okay with a little pair of cheaters, to really have that conversation with patients.
Thank you, Matt. I actually find a few things you said that are what patients really love about refractive lens exchange. They're a little worried about monovision, having one eye read better and be blurry at a distance. And so when they find out that really what's beautiful about refractive lens exchange is we're actually going to the problem. I mean, that's that lens behind the pupil that is the problem. And that's why we can go for each eye 20/20 at a distance, balanced, and each eye 20/20 at computer, balanced, and each eye 20/20 at near, balanced, like they were in their 30s. And that is where we see a lot of patient joy. So Dr. Swan, again, you do a lot of these laser vision corrections, and you do a lot of these implants for high nearsightedness, and you do a lot of these lens replacements, whether it's refractive lens exchange, which I sometimes think as early cataract surgery, or you do a lot of cataract surgery. When someone is choosing that refractive lens journey, they're looking for that more permanent correction. Can you tell me what it's like after the surgery? Because, Dr. Wen talked nicely about what that surgery day is like. How can they expect that refractive lens journey that first 6 months to go?
Yeah, great question, Vance. I think it's important on the front end to talk about it, as Dr. Wen mentioned. And I think, what I try to tell patients is, we're doing a visual reset for you. You've developed a lens that's stiff, and we're putting in a new lens implant. And so there's going to be some adaptation to that. And in general, what I tell people, the first 2 to 3 days, we're going to ask you to kind of take it a little bit easy. What I tell them, kind of no strenuous, heavy lifting activities. They can go for a walk, they can be enjoying life. And really, over that first kind of 24 to 48 hours, as the dilation that we use for surgery wears off, the vision will start to come into focus. But really, the first month of healing, the cornea is still going back into its natural form. And so that prescription is still settling out. And, I tell patients there's one thing that we as a surgeon can't control and they as a patient can't control. And that's a fancy medical term we use, which is called effective lens position. But effectively, where does that lens heal up and settle in the eye? And it's the one thing that allows, as we go into that journey, we try to knock it out of the park for patients right from the beginning. And a lot of times that's the case. But sometimes we talk about this may be a 2, 3, or 4-step journey. So the surgery, the lens exchange, is step 1. Step 2 of that journey, as they go through the healing phase, some patients early on or later in life, the lens is held in place by a little bag or capsule, and that bag or capsule can develop a little film on it. And if that happens, we can use a little laser called a YAG laser to remove that film. And so I tell patients that's a possible step 2 that may happen early in your journey or later on in life in your journey. And then possible step 3, again, as someone goes through the healing, one of our goals with this is we really need to nail that refractive outcome. As Dr. Nguyen was mentioning, we don't want them to heal up and have a little nearsightedness or farsightedness or astigmatism left. And that's the beauty of being a comprehensive refractive surgery. We can come back with step 3 and we can use a laser and do a laser fine tune to deal with any leftover prescriptive error, nearsightedness or farsightedness. So that's a possible step 3. And then there's what I like to call step 4, which is time and neuroadaptation. And this is, to your point, Vance, of the 6-month journey or even 12-month journey with a refractive lens exchange is cataracts, lens exchange at day 1, a month, you're most of the way healed. We have a good idea if we're going to do any fine tune around that 3-month mark with a laser. But then even after that laser, for those next 3 or 6 months, the brain will continue to adapt to this new optical system, and the vision quality will continue to get better and better and better. So that's kind of how I view that potentially up to 4-step journey, where some patients might not have step 2 or 3, or they might come at different points in their life, but those are the potential steps of a refractive lens exchange journey.
Thank you, Dr. Swan. What I experience also is it seems like the patient joy, even that first week, is amazing. There's early joy, and yes, it's a journey to get to that best vision, but it can be an exciting journey. So,
Vance,
Dr.
can I mention one thing on that? I mean, I think of, when you think of the joy that patients talk about, the things that I always, that light up people's eyes is when they're talking about, they're out to dinner with their friends and all their friends are pulling out their reading glasses or cheaters and they're sitting there reading their menu a couple days after surgery and like, this is amazing. Or they're looking at their cell phone while their friends are fiddling with their bifocals or reading glasses. It's a pretty special moment for patients.
It really is. And, and those patients, whether it's someone who never needed glasses and now they just need readers, or it's someone who has bifocals, both groups, haven't really realized that they actually can address that now with modern day implants and have the reading range of their younger years. And so, Dr. Nguyen, I'd like to spend a little bit of time on that thing we call the implant. We know that in, traditional cataract surgery, there's a type of implant, but there's this whole world of advanced implants that I really try to emphasize to patients to do their research for this permanent decision. Can you talk a little bit about the implant?
Yeah. So again, we're going to be replacing that clear natural lens with an artificial implant. And so traditionally with cataract surgery, there's a type of implant called a basic or standard monofocal lens. And so what I always tell folks or emphasize is this just has one focusing point versus with our natural lens, we have that extended depth of focus that Dr. Walker had talked about, which is giving us the distance, giving us the computer, and then giving us up close vision. And so if we're talking about a refractive lens exchange, normally I like to talk about some of the other options that we have available, because that one particular option might not match the goals that people are looking for. And so with a multifocal, which is kind of on the other end of the spectrum, it has multiple focusing points. And so typically the ones that we have available that we trust and love are diffractive optics, meaning that it's going to have these kind of like big concentric rings that help split light to help achieve those different ranges of vision for us. And so in terms of patient expectation, what I tell folks is, just like Dr. Swan said, it's going to be that 4-step journey. And so neuroadaptation is going to be the biggest part, because our natural lens doesn't quite have those same rings that the artificial implant will have. And so it's going to be a little bit of a journey. Another thing to emphasize too is it's not going to guarantee that we're going to be out of glasses 100% of the time. If we did, I mean, I think we would probably doing a refractive lens exchange in our 20s or 30s. I probably would have skipped doing LASIK and done that instead to avoid having to deal with another surgery down the road. But it's going to give us the vision that we have in our 30s, probably. And so with regards to that, lighting is always going to be important for us because it's splitting light. And so I always tell folks, if you're, at a restaurant, it's a candlelit dinner. I mean, early on, you're probably going to notice that you still will have to maybe pull out a pair or your phone and just add a little bit more lighting to be able to see things earlier on. Or if it's truly is super fine detailed work that you're looking at, a little bit of magnification with readers or a magnifier can still be helpful too. And that just again goes back to just the hobbies and things that you do in your free time. Another technology that we have for folks that maybe are like truck drivers or pilots that can't deal with the glare and halos associated with the rings would be like an extended depth of focus lens. That type of technology will go ahead and stretch light versus split light. And so oftentimes we don't have as much glare and halos to deal with, or even a light adjustable lens too, which is something very similar. I really love the light adjustable lens technology for folks that have had a history with good success in monovision contact lenses, because those are the type of lenses that we're going to be able to customize after surgery. It does involve a little bit more of a time commitment. And so for folks that travel a lot, just don't have the ability to make frequent visits afterwards, maybe that's not the right option for them. But for those that really want to be involved in the just process of adjusting their lenses following surgery, I really do like that option.
Thank you, Dr. Wen. A couple things I want to emphasize that you said were so good is we really try to emphasize not thinking there's going to be zero glasses need for anything. For instance, our most common implant that we use for refractive lens exchange gives that balanced distance and that balanced computer 20/20 and that balanced, near 20/20, mainly optimized for cell phone distance. But I tell my patients that if you're moving inside of that distance to thread a needle or something, you may do just fine depending on what distance you like doing that. But I call that the fourth distance. And that occasionally you may need some readers to do that. But it's amazing how, the freedom that you get out in day-to-day life by this convenience near that's optimized for cell phone distance. And then the other thing that I like that you mentioned is that the reading part of the implant, the part that's giving you the reading range of someone in their 30s, can create a halo around lights at night. We expect it. It's the reading part of the implant showing itself at night. And like Dr. Swan said, we've been involved in a lot of the clinical trials to develop laser vision, implant vision, and then advanced lens replacement surgery. And one of the things that was so amazing in the first, what I call trifocal study we did, was how much happier the patients were at the end of that 6-month journey than they were with a single vision implant, what Dr. Wen called a monofocal implant. And so the patient joy with these full range implants can be very high, but it is a journey like Dr. Swan, was talking about. One of the things you mentioned, Dr. Walker, was the two focusing elements of the eye. And I like to think of it on either side of the pupil. We got the cornea in the front and we got the lens behind the pupil. We're spending a lot of time talking about the lens today and how we can do this permanent vision correction. What I love about the cornea is teaching people about the importance of the tear film, and that in this presbyopic journey, sometimes there's a dryness that's developing. A lot of patients understand how, dryness may affect how their eyes feel, but what I'd like you to talk about a little bit is the vision contribution of that tear film and how in that exam we want to make sure that's healthy and if necessary, treat.
Yeah, it's a great point. 2/3 of the power of the whole eye come from the surface of that cornea, from air to the tear film. And if the first surface of the eye where light is being bent or refracted isn't smooth and regular and normal, it's going to create a distorted image. And whether you go with a monofocal implant or trifocal, it's just that image quality is going to be reduced. So we even have patients where, hey, I'm coming in because glasses won't help me anymore, but my vision fluctuates all day. Well, the natural lens isn't fluctuating. Your retina is not fluctuating. Many times it can be the tear film where they don't have necessarily any dry eye symptoms of gritty, scratchy, irritated eyes. But if their vision is fluctuating during the day, there's an issue. Luckily, with all the advanced diagnostics that we have in our clinics, we're able to pick up a lot of those cases even before we talk to the patient. But anytime we're considering any surgery, not even just cataract refractive lens exchange, but even oculoplastics, glaucoma surgery, if we're having an issue with that tear film, surgery will temporarily make that a little bit worse, and then patient expectations may not be there. So with dry eye, it can be an issue with anatomy of the lids or the cornea. It can be an issue with tear production, or it can have to do with an evaporative issue where the tears evaporate too fast. Either way, if we have an unstable cornea, you may not do as well as you'd like after surgery, and then we're kind of picking up the pieces afterwards to get you in a good spot. So for a lot of patients that we see, maybe a tear film dysfunction, we're going to have also that conversation before surgery to say, hey, part of your issue is not the cataract, let's say, or part of your issue is not your -9 glasses. Part of the issue is that poor tear film. And then here are the steps that we're going to take. Maybe, patients have an expectation. We're getting in for surgery. I want surgery today or tomorrow. And, we love doing that if it's appropriate. But in some cases, we might have to take a step back to say, hey, to get the results that both you and I are looking for, I want to deliver on the results that you're looking for. We need to take this additional step first.
Well, thank you, Matt. I agree. That tear film is so important for image quality. And a lot of patients are surprised by that, but we can measure and quantify and, if necessary, treat. So last question for Dr. Swan. I'd like you to comment a little bit on, what I like to call full range vision. A lot of people that are in readers and bifocals have seen their friends try monovision with contact lenses or monovision with laser vision correction. And the joy that comes with this full range correction that you think is for someone that's in their 20s and 30s that still has, good lens function can be restored now with refractive lens exchange. And personally, I think it takes the pressure off the surgeon versus trying to take a single vision implant and do, one eye distance, one eye near. Can you talk about that joy with modern day implants of restoring full range vision for the rest of a person's life?
Yeah, I think God made us with a flexible, clear lens so that both eyes could be working in tandem, and that gives us our best quality vision. And I think the beauty of refractive lens exchange, in its modern day form with diffractive optics, is that we can deliver that in both eyes. And you talk about, full range of vision, distance, computer, cell phones. So much of our world lives in that range. And yes, tying a fly, like that's challenging, whether you have 20-year-old eyes or 30-year-old eyes or 60-year-old eyes or 80 years eyes. But so much of that vast majority of range of vision, that full range of vision that we live in, can be achieved now with refractive lens exchange, which is a really special thing to get that back after someone's lost that, whether they're in their 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s, to have somebody who's, spent 10, 20, 30 years having lost that, to then be able to get that back is an amazing gift. So really special thing to be able to offer to our patients and deliver on for our patients.
Well, I agree 100%, Dr. Swan, and I think it's one of the things that I have seen as one of the largest advancements in my career. And I think that, like you said, so much of our world has shifted to cell phone and computer, that to see the research these companies put into, putting that advanced technology in the implant, like Dr. Nguyen talked about, just blows me away. And a lot of patients just don't want to wait until they get a cataract to enjoy the benefits of refractive lens exchange. So as we come to a close, I want to thank Dr. Nguyen and Dr. Walker and Dr. Swan for this amazing discussion. And what an honor for us to be able to represent all 8 of our centers, where you can go in and have a consultation and learn about your eyes, your hopes and desires, and your options. But thank you so much for your time and attention, and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Clear Answers About Clear Vision, the exclusive podcast by Vance Thompson Vision. We hope this episode has empowered you to take the next step toward achieving clear vision. If you found this information helpful, please share it with a friend who might benefit too. Ready to take the next step? Schedule an evaluation with our expert team or visit us online at vancethompsonvision.com to learn more. Together, we'll help you see the world more clearly, one decision at a time. Until next time, take care and keep your vision worth seeing.